Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Eternal X Wolfpack Paranormal, the podcast. Tonight, we have a great guest. We have Chris O'Toole sitting in the background, and we'll be talking with her here in a little bit. Also, I'd like to say, hope you had a great weekend so far. It's been very nice out, and hopefully, we keep the warm weather around because I'm tired of that cold weather. That's for sure. Also, check out all the shows on All Access Network Television. They got a bunch of great shows on there as well, and you can definitely find the Eternal X Wolfpack Paranormal on there as well. So, without further ado, let's invite Chris on here.
Hey
Hey,
man,
Chris.
hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a while. I mean, I've seen a few of your shows, and actually been sitting in the background on a few as well. And I figured it was about time that you come to the eternal side.
Well, thank you. Hey man, I appreciate you listening to me. I appreciate when I have viewers and and a little audience, and to talk about different things from true crime to paranormal. So thank you for having me tonight.
We got Gwen in the background. She says, "Hey, hey,"
Hey, hey.
and yeah, like I said, I fill in for Gwen once in a while. And I know I filled in to help do your show a few times as well, and we got into
Absolutely.
a couple really good conversations. So
No,
not a
absolutely.
lot not a lot of people from my side maybe know who you are. So can you explain a little bit who you are, Chris?
No, absolutely. So my name is Chris O'Toole, Lisbony, and I go by Chris O'Toole as well. And I'm a paranormal investigator, researcher, also to a psychic medium. And I basically do a lot more research than I do anything with the paranormal. Basically, work with frequencies, and in the process of innovating new equipment, to try to use analog to integrate with AI to have a clearer sound, results, through energy, or as you call it, like spiritual communication. I invented a spirit box, or what I call audio box, and it's called the Havlin Nicola. So I customize brainwave frequencies, and then you can use a third party ITC app. I need to actually make an app for it, where it can be more, clear, more dynamic. But with the frequencies, it atones with your brainwave frequencies. It atones to the energy that surrounds you, even if it's remotely. If you are
Mm-hmm.
an experienced medium, a psychic medium, you can use this for your benefit. But basically, what
Right.
I've been doing is researching this, working with people, more of a kind of a spiritual type of realm. So people who have gone through depression of loss, where they need some type of confirmation to move
Right.
on. Also, too, I have used it, several times on missing persons, to help families, find their loved ones, to find some type of uh, I don't want to say answers, but clues or whatever that can help them, either give them closure, or possibly
Right.
help law enforcement you know coincide or confirm what they already know, or
Right.
what evidence, physical evidence, they already have. So I mean, but still, there's a debate between using these type of equipment, when it comes to this, because there's no scientific fact. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? There's nothing that's a scientific fact, but we do have scientific theories, and our
Mm-hmm.
theories really do work when you look at quantum physics. When you look at other type of sciences, with this, and especially just with energy itself. Like, so for instance, I've done like experiments where, going to a haunted location, like, so here I live about, maybe about 20 minutes away from Newport subdivision, that's in Crosby, Texas, which
Right.
Newport subdivision is really known for, is the slave cemetery that houses were actually built on. And part of, the scene of Poltergeist was actually a part of that story,
Well,
you
that's cool.
know. Yeah, with the Black Hope horror, with the
Hmm.
swimming pool, them digging and then finding bodies and so forth. Well, they were digging and trying to put a swimming pool and they came up on, bodies. And so part of the cemetery is still intact and it's in the woods, you
Hmm.
know. But we were, at the end of the street, and so I got a cat ball, and then I used to have with Nicola. Now they were about, and I have this on video too. They were about, I want to say 5, 6 feet away from each other,
Right.
and the Havlin Nicola was like on the back of my trunk of my car, and this was on the concrete on the curb. Okay,
Hmm.
so, I made sure where it was at, like it was like in a groove where it can't move, you know what I'm saying? Unless somebody physically touches it. And so, like, especially like if you're using like the necrophonic I mean, any other ITC apps that are like valid that, works, which in a way I kind of believe that if you're in a haunted place, anything's going to work. Just about, you know
Hmm.
what I'm saying, to get, if they really want to make a message or if they want to send you a clear message, they're going to do it through any type of electronic, you know.
Right.
Especially like lights. But I just feel that, this can really help people as well.
Yeah.
This type of, if you want to call paranormal science, because I do feel that like with frequencies can heal the body.
Oh yeah.
Frequencies can heal the mind. If we can tune these frequencies, then once we do that, and just like with, with Nikolai, Tesla,
Tesla.
yeah, who I, partly named, the device after, is because he believed that if you understand frequencies, basically, you can pretty much solve, you know, you can solve anything in the universe, and I really do believe that, and Tesla was a spiritual person too.
Yeah, he definitely
You
was.
know?
He definitely used frequencies to open up portals, which is very interesting. Frequencies along with electricity, and that's definitely an interesting thing in a combination as well. He also said the numbers 369 is definitely a game changer as soon as you figure out what the numbers actually mean. So
No,
that
absolutely. No, I totally believe that. That's actually like my numbers, like 369.
right.
I use those numbers like in part of my artwork. Even even AI graphic work. I use those numbers because I want people to tell me what it represents. If someone's like,
Right.
"Hey, Nikolai Tesla," then I know, like, okay, like, something.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of interesting content and documentation and documentaries on him, and I find him very fascinating with some of the things that he has accomplished back in the day, especially with the fact of wanting to do free energy. I still, to this day, think that's very possible,
Oh yeah.
and they should have done it to begin with. It's definitely possible, especially with the ley lines, the way the world has ley lines in them, and definitely you could have free energy without a shadow of a doubt.
No, I totally agree with you. And I'm all about, free energy. And, of course, like you said, that's what he was trying to accomplish. But, we can't live in the mind of Tesla. You know what I'm saying? We can only imagine, the innovative ideas that he has come up with or patented that, from my understanding, the government has like some of his stuff classified, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken, where no one could really get access, to those
Right.
prints
Right.
and so forth. But, you know, I I feel that, his devotion, to electricity, that he castrated himself, to make sure that this was his life work.
Oh yeah.
And because of it, we wouldn't have all the things that we're doing now. We wouldn't be on, I wouldn't be on a mobile device talking to you. We would not have, streaming. We would not have internet. We wouldn't have wireless phones. I mean, he made the first wireless RF boat,
Mhm.
motor boat.
Right.
He made the first spirit box,
Oh, most
out
definitely.
out of a
He did a
mason.
lot of amazing things that nobody really realizes. So that leads back to a question for me because you were talking about frequencies,
Hmm.
and that seems to fascinate me as well with frequencies. Um, have you ever tried using a frequency to move an object by chance with maybe setting speakers in certain angles and stuff?
Okay, so that's what on that story that I was telling you about the cat ball,
Hmm.
and the Haviland Nicola. So I had the audio box on top of my car. Okay, so it was not equal. It wasn't balanced. If
Hmm.
sound is going to come out, yes, sound's going to expand because it's going to go up, it's going to go down, right?
Right.
The frequencies, but you have to have a lot of wattage, a lot of power for that really to happen, or like a subwoofer, it has to be close, you know, because like when you have a subwoofer, and sound is created, it produces pressure, you
True.
know, and that pressure
So
that and is, it resonates, you know what I'm saying?
right.
So,
So let's step across the line for a second and talk about a theory of that. Mind over matter and telekinesis. If that was the case, then how is supposedly the humans doing that? Because if you can match your frequency with the frequency of an object, supposedly you'd be able to move it.
I do believe that's possible. You remember there was a man who used to bend spoons. People said
Hmm.
he was an imposter. I mean, he would just look at a spoon. He wouldn't even shake it. He'd look at it.
Right.
He would huff and puff and all that, and the spoon would bend. I believe that we do. We all have that capability.
Hmm.
It's just we have to open our minds to it, and I do believe that certain frequencies do allow that to happen. Some people are just born with it. Just like, for instance, you have people who are gifted at math, you know, and you have people, not me, like I'm not gifted at math, but, ever since I was a kid, I've always seen spirits, I've always, sensed things. I've always known things that I've never knew before. And I can see remotely to things. And, that just came to me, but that doesn't mean that that mathematician couldn't do it. If he was in the right frame of mind, you know, where everything wasn't so logical to the point, then yes, he would be able to do that too. But like me, I mean, I suck at math, but if I try really, really hard, I may pass.
Right.
So I think everybody.
Some people can actually study forever and not pass a test, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
they can study forever and not pass a test. But then if you ask that person a question, they can definitely tell you all about it. Um,
Yeah,
it's
and see, and I'm a horrible test taker. I'm not gonna lie, man. I have to psych myself up to like to pass. And I was horrible. I would study and study and study, and it was just like I knew it, but right when test time came, I guess I just got overwhelmed. And what I learned is to have an object that you can use, and put all your fears and everything in that object, before you do a test take. So, like, for instance, you go in there, wear a bracelet. That bracelet right there is going to guarantee you're going to pass. That bracelet. So if you get worried or nervous, like, pluck the bracelet.
mhm,
And that's what
definitely
I learned how to do, and it calmed my mind, where I learned how to read multiple questions, you know what I'm saying, and
mhm,
process them accordingly to make the right choice. And it
right.
worked.
So we'll go back to the frequency thing here again because frequencies is something I always get hooked on because I like studying them and learning different things from different people,
Right.
and getting what their thoughts are about frequencies. What would you recommend, since you deal with frequencies a lot? What would you recommend and how to train your mind to use those frequencies the way they're supposed to be? What would you recommend to do that?
How I would recommend it is you sit in the middle of your room and you listen to the ambient sound in your house or in
Mm-hmm.
your surrounding. And you concentrate on that, and you concentrate on your breathing. Because when
Yeah,
you
so
do
it'd
that,
be a form of a meditation then, just like some of us do with Reiki then.
correct, correct. That's what I would tell people first, how to get in touch with those frequencies, because like we have loved ones talking to us all the time, and I can name off people right now, like, hey, you know what, your loved one's trying to talk to you, you're not
Mm-hmm.
listening, because you have to be trained to listen to your loved ones on the other side. And I feel that it is possible for everyone to achieve this. People may be better than others, but I do believe that it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Oh,
the, the
definitely. So, I
yeah.
mean, I've had somebody pass away a couple of years ago, and they have definitely talked to me, and I've definitely heard their voice many, many times. And especially when I go to make a decision or something, if it's a good one, they'll tap me on my right shoulder. If not, they'll tap me on my left. And that would be right as good, bad as left. And so far, I've been listening to what that little voice has said and what they've been saying. And, it's been pretty good advice because they're seeing what I can't see.
Right. No, and I do have my faith, especially when I do work with this type of environment. um my thing is too is that in my head it is science,
Mm-hmm.
and when we change our mind frame, our mind changes, and we change it and we form it, it becomes something different. It becomes like a shield. So when I go into places with supposedly demonic activity, or a person tells me that they have a demonic attachment and so forth, yes, I'm protected, by the Archangel Michael and Christ
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, and in the blood of Christ, but also too, you know, I know that this is something I have to do and document to help someone, because
Right.
not a lot of people are going to do this. You talk to most Christians, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you talk anything about any Satan, demonic, anything that they don't understand is automatically the devil. It's automatically satanic.
Oh,
You
yeah, most definitely.
and my thing is that a lot of Christians don't realize, you know, we we want to blame something satanic that we don't understand because we were never exposed to it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something that's a lifestyle, but at the
Right.
same time, that's where we develop ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, like, believe me, I believe in the scripture, I believe in the Bible, but we really have to understand,
Right.
that this world is a lot more complex than what it says in the Bible, and I think that's why a lot of people, rely on their faith and they don't go beyond the Bible, because they're afraid to find out, and I would be too, and I did, and I was very afraid. All I
Mm-hmm.
knew was about Christ, and when you think about frequencies and all that, you don't really associate it to the spiritual realm, like I didn't, the
Mm-hmm.
25 years of being an audio visual engineer,
Right.
I didn't until, you know, I really thought about some things, and then I saw, like people like Steve Huff, and some other, content creators, who are using spirit boxes,
Right.
to communicate, and I'm like, you know what, this is something, far more greater, than just the spiritual communication,
Mm-hmm.
because the fact that, like I said, frequencies heal, correct? Like they can
Yeah.
heal, and I truly believe that there is energy that does float around us, especially loved ones and all that, that can heal us as well. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And heal us through frequencies.
I'm
And
gonna I'm gonna give a holler out here, Chris. We've got Gabby Newsom in the house, and we've got Randy Mayber. I
hey, Randy.
hope I pronounced his name right. They're in the house here. Thanks for stopping by, guys. We also got, like I said, Miss
Hey,
Gwen.
Gwen.
Gwen is standing in the background. You know, she is getting ready for a show after we get done here. But yeah, we've got a few. It's in the house. So thank you for stopping by.
Yes, thank you so much.
Um, that's one of the things I do. I'm open minded about religion as in the aspect of how people interpret it,
Right.
because everybody interprets the Bible different, and everybody has their own belief. And there's things that I've come across that are totally different from what I've learned, and I think it's amazing on the things that we learned once we've been in the paranormal field.
Right.
And also, paranormal, I have found out, goes beyond just, you know, ghost finding, ghost hunting, or investigation, however you'd like to call it. It goes into the science, it goes into energy work, it goes into the shamanism, and it goes into religion. And I mean, it just kind of spreads all the way through. And some people doesn't realize that it's actually all linked together.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. It is. It's all linked together. You know, when I was younger, I went to church. My mom did not like me to go to church. She was like anti-church. I think a lot of it because she grew up Catholic, Irish Catholic, and she went to a private school, and they were probably strict, and she probably didn't like that. She was pretty rebellious when she was younger. And so when
Hey,
I started
Angie,
getting
Shane.
interested. Huh? I'm sorry.
Oh, I hollered at Angie and Shane real quick. They just joined us,
Hey.
and so did Moose Man there. They're
Hey,
all
thank
in
you
the
guys.
house now. So, but
Yeah, so
you saying that you were in the church and your
yeah,
mom.
yeah. My mom didn't like me going to church or Sunday school or whatever. But like when we moved to Texas City, I started going to First Baptist Church, and I really enjoyed it. I really
Mhm.
did, and I had neighbors across the street who invited me to their church, the Will Showers, and I remember they gave me this gospel tape, and I used to listen to it. It was so funny because I did not like Southern gospel, but I really liked this Southern gospel tape, and yeah, and I just remember, just that feeling, that holiness, feeling that wholesome, type of feeling. And it all changed one day when I had a best friend and she had leukemia, and we all attended church. And
Mhm.
so I just remember the pastor telling me, like, look, nothing's going to happen to her. Jesus is going to save her, okay? And she's going to be healed, and y'all are going to have a long lasting friendship. And then it was like 2 days after he said that, she died.
Mhm.
And I remember praying. I was praying so hard, like, please don't take her away. And at this time, my mom was having a very dangerous surgery. And it was like a 50-50 chance that she was going to make it.
Mhm.
And so here I am, like, I'm praying, I'm praying, I'm praying. And, I find out that she died. My aunt told me she passed away. So
Yeah.
that changed my whole dynamics because then I'm like, look, man, you lied to me because you said Jesus was going to save her and Jesus didn't, you know? And what am I supposed to do now? That's when I started breaking away from the church, you
Yeah.
know? And then I started going my own path when in my early 20s, learning about different religions. And my stepmother, we were very close when she was alive, and she was a very spiritual person. So she taught me about like Wicca. She taught me
Mhm.
about, of course, Christianity. She
Right.
taught me about Hinduism. She taught me like different religions and different cultures, and you know, to do what they do. She was a very like awesome mom.
Right.
You know,
We have a comment here, Chris.
yes.
Shane McLean from Bridging the Gap, which is a really good show we have on All Access
Hey, Shane.
Television Network as well. He said here, I use a very technical method of clearing and cleansing, but if what you use works for you, then it works for you. If you have a good intention, then your outcome will be amazing. And that's true. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've even experienced that with shaman stuff as well, because some things that does work for me may not work for others. And it's trial and error until you find out what works for you.
No,
And
absolutely.
yeah, but it's always good to know the other side as well, because then you could teach that other person something they may not know that may work for them.
No, absolutely. We had a situation where we lived in this house, and I don't know what was manifesting in this house, but we would see like apparitions down the hall. I would see this. Like there were orbs, but they were like dark orbs, like coming out of like the dresser mirror. Floating around the ceiling fan. I mean, there was just like some weird things going on, and then like our, demeanor started to change, and all that, and it was just like I don't know what it was, and like we blessed the house a couple of times. It just
Mhm.
like it pissed it off even more, and then we
Right.
had a friend who she practices Santeria, a form of Santeria, and so
Mhm.
she like made this concoction of herbs and all that, and she was like, say this, do this, and then you know, um, I think it was like coal or whatever or charcoal, and it will, get that negative energy and put it in the bottle, and then
Mhm.
she said, then bring it to me, and then like I'll bury it, and I
Right.
mean, this was like years ago. And so like that's what we did, and then it just ceased. Like everything was good. And I do believe that there are certain parts like where I used to live, I mean, we had, Christians come to the house, we had, you know, uh, people who practice Wiccan come to the house and
Mhm.
everything. And they all said like we can't do this alone. Like the energy here is just so strong, it can't go anywhere.
Hmm.
You know?
Interesting.
Right. So if you have like for instance, I had, dead African voodoo slaves in my front yard, then yeah, you know what? When it comes to Christianity, maybe a spiritual type of Christian type of spiritual method may not work effectively as much as the same religion, somebody from that same religion taking care of that situation.
Well,
You
that is
know?
true. That is true, unless there's something of a higher power than that, which links back to the ancient times, which would override a lot of that. But um, knowing and understanding how to do that is a different story as well.
Right, and I mean, I am not that type of person. And in that sense of like dealing with that, like, look, man, when it's voodoo, whatever, like, I mean, I have nothing against it. My grandparents on my grandfather's side, I mean, my grandmother on my dad's side,
Mm-hmm.
his parents and his grandparents practiced it, but they were devout Catholics. They went to church, I mean, they went to mass all the time, because
Right.
it was a cultural thing, being Creole, and living out in the Louisiana woods, in the swamps, and you know, not speaking any English.
Right. I mean, I've always found hoodoo and voodoo fascinating when you start looking into some of it. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
just for the fact of some of the things that they come up with, that you would never think of that would actually work.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, like, I look at, like you said, like the documentaries and everything, because like how when it came to the church, oh, you can't talk about that. Can't
Hmm.
talk about it at all. But of course, when I went to school and studied cultural anthropology, you talked about it.
Right.
You talked about different religions and the things that they did, and and so forth like that, and it opened my mind more to like to understand, and then knowing that part of my family practiced that at one time, then and it's in my blood, obviously, that I have to understand it a little bit,
Right.
and it's not as bad as what people think it is. It just goes against scripture that
Hmm.
people practice. You know what I'm saying? It's a different faith. That's all that it is. You
Right.
know?
Shane's made a comment here. Also, being able to bind all curses and generational curses open up more effective cleansing. Yes, that is true as well. I do agree with that.
Yeah, I do too.
Um,
I
normally, when I've got something on a property that is very, how do I say, pestering, I guess, and doesn't
uh
want to leave, what I do is actually we'll sage the house and then we'll
right,
christen the ground. And when I do that, we've never ever had a problem with anything coming back besides good stuff, and
right,
that's a good thing. We've also had places we've been to that you can just feel the heaviness on it from the
right.
time you walk on the property, and a lot of bad things have happened on that property as well. But we ain't able to go back to that location anymore. So um, that may just end up getting worse and worse as time goes on, because actually that house that we went to actually sets on a six-pointed star.
Oh
Each
wow.
house actually set on the star at the point of the star facing in, and in the middle of the star there was a black church, and it collapsed and they buried it. And I've always wanted to go back to see if I can find the black church, just to find out if it's totally gone,
Oh
you know,
wow.
because I don't want younger kids crossing that stuff and
Right.
finding things out there that they shouldn't be getting their hands on as well.
Oh no. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's nothing similar like that here, but over here at the church, I try to tell my nephews, don't be over there at night. They go out there and they fish on the banks of the
Mm-hmm.
cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
and bad stuff has happened over the years there. I mean, there's been a lot of satanic rituals that went on there.
Oh yeah.
Um, a couple of years ago, oh, man, it's been more than a year. I mean, it was like 6 years ago. Actually, Katrina, spiritual medium.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we were filming my documentary, and so it was like her and her best friend Rhodey, and we went to the cemetery, and because I was picking up things like intelligent responses,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was telling her about it because she was at my house, kind of like doing a walkthrough,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the
Right.
things that she said, there was confirmation. So
Mm-hmm.
we met up, and as we're like walking in the cemetery, we come up over like this. It was like a building. It used to be like a summer camp, a Christian summer camp,
Right.
or like the United Methodist Church. So it was like in the back, and so you can tell that somebody was doing a ritual because there was like this circle, and I don't know if it was like with like black salt or whatever, and then there were like candles, and it looked like there was like maybe like a chicken or something. There was like feathers, in certain places. And so, but I would hear the urban legend here was like there's the original United Methodist Church, like that was built, I think, like in the late
Mm-hmm.
1800s, maybe. Don't quote me on that. I'm probably wrong. But when it closed down and they built the new one, well, it was abandoned, and supposedly back in the 1980s Satanic Panic
Right.
era, they would say that kids would go there and that they would, do satanic rituals inside this abandoned church.
Mm-hmm.
Now the
Hold,
church,
hold that thought for a second, Chris.
right.
Um, Shane says that's why bridging the gap between paranormal and clergy is very much needed, and I definitely agree with that. We also have Lee Brown in the house, the CEO of All Access Network
Hey, Lee.
Television. She is in the house. Thanks for stopping in, Lee.
Hey,
Um,
Letriana, how you doing?
but yeah, go ahead and the rest of your story, Chris,
Yeah,
with
so
the sacrifices.
yeah, so that that was told to me by like my wife and a couple of other people. So
Mm-hmm.
it's always been like, okay, it was an urban legend. So now to
Mm-hmm.
me it's like, well, it was kind of confirmed now since I kind of saw all this stuff. And then come to find out who was a part of that satanic ritual was like my daughter's best friend. And I'm
Wow.
like, really? She told me, she told me about it after I said like, oh yeah, we were out there like that night. And I'm like,
I've
I didn't
actually,
know you were
I've,
doing that.
yeah, I've actually been to a location that I plan on going back this summer with the team if I can get them all gathered together, and also um, the writer from Spoon River Paranormal as well. Have her come out with us because she doesn't live far from where I'm talking about. We're planning on going back to the Witches Circle, and they've had some sacrifices out there. And also, I've got pictures of some of the stuff that you could see from what was the residue on the concrete. Um, I don't think they should be doing all those sacrifices out there anymore. But then there's some people that's also saying there is a second witches circle out in the woods, and I'm curious. I want to find it if there is. I want to know if
Oh,
there
that
is
would be cool.
another. I want to know if there is actually another because the only one I know is the one that's actually in the cemetery itself. So, but
Yeah.
I can get everybody together. We definitely are going to do that here this summer and probably within the next month or so.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So where do you live? Or where are you located? What state?
I live in Illinois in Galesburg. I'm
Okay.
about 45 minutes from Peoria, about 35 minutes from the Quad Cities, and about 45 minutes from Burlington, Iowa.
Yeah, I have never been there. I've never been to that state.
Yeah, so and actually about 3 hours away from Chicago. So, but I'm kind of right in the middle of everything. So
Oh, that's pretty
we
cool.
we have a lot of investigations that I've been on that's been in the Chillicothe area,
Uh-huh.
the Peoria, Illinois area. We've had some places that we went to, like Bell Mansion in Indiana, Broadhead Manor in Wisconsin. We've also went to let's see, Oquaka down in that area to Masonic Lodge. All those have been very interesting. I've done a lot of residential houses as well, and those are the ones I like the best is the residentials out of everything. But I've seen a lot of interesting stuff over the years for sure.
Yeah, me too. I like to do residentials more. To me, it's just more intimate that way. That's how I basically started. Was doing that. It's just like probably everybody else, every investigator. But I had a mentor. His name was Peter Havlin. That's where Havlin Nicola comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had like the most awesome experience, when it came to the paranormal with him. And so, yeah, of course, it was residential. And I mean, like, we've been to cemeteries and everything like that. But when I go to cemeteries, I just do that for research purposes,
Mm-hmm.
basically. Ask questions, see responses that I get, how clear it comes through, you know, um, what can I use to improve the frequency
Mm-hmm.
and all that. But you know what? When it going back to you, when it comes to, you know, living in the location that you live, geographically, man, that's just perfect. See, y'all don't know how lucky y'all are. Like up in the northern area. I mean, Texas sucks. I mean, Texas is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, on the east side of Texas, we have beautiful forestry. On the
Mhm.
west side, we have desert and mountains, and all that, all the way, down to Mexico. It is, you know, it geographically is pretty badass.
We
But
do we
but for
do get a
you,
lot of interesting places, especially with the Indian burial grounds and the Indian land around here.
yeah.
It's definitely interesting, the things we do come across. That's for
Now,
sure.
I mean, we do have very interesting haunted places here, like Galveston. Galveston's very haunted. I was born and raised there. I think some of the hauntings that I have experienced it has been from Galveston. Especially living where I lived at in the haunted location. Come to find out, the guy who owned the property and died there was the guy who founded, the University of Texas and where I was born.
Right.
And I died clinically for 10 minutes and then they
Oh,
resuscitated me.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is what my mom said. I mean, I think after 10 minutes I would have been brain dead, but who knows? You know how moms are. Um,
Bobby Resnick is in the house. Thanks
hey,
for stopping
Bobby.
by,
Thanks
Bobby.
for watching. Thanks for
Um,
watching. Yeah, but the person who basically owned that and also too built the first medical center. I used to play in there.
mhm.
It's called the Old Red Building, and so
Right.
it was built in like in the 1800s, like 18, I don't know, like 1880 something like that. And so when my grandmother was born, or when my grandmother was young, she would go up on the top floor and she would see all these cadavers and organs and formaldehyde because that was the medical school up there. That's where they did all the you know I guess we call it dissections
Oh, yeah.
and everything like that.
One of the places that I've been to is Bartonville to the Aura. It was part of Zeller's Hospital back in the day, and it's also linked to some of the stuff here in where I live at in Galesburg. Some of the locations that here are Zeller's as well. There's an old mental hospital across from our courthouse here in Galesburg that I've been trying to get into, but they've got it condemned. They won't let anybody into it, but that would definitely be a good place to go and investigate before they tear it down. But it's getting in pretty bad shape, from what I understand. They don't let people go into it. And there's also some locations north of me that was part of the Zellers Hospital area where they've done research and all sorts of other stuff on experiments on people as well.
It's great when you can go inside the structure, you know, get EMF readings and try to pick up BVPs and all that. But a lot of people, misunderstand about structures. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you always heard the saying, "If these walls can speak," right?
Oh, yeah.
Walls can speak
And
because they
so
have
can the
visual
ground.
energy.
And so can the ground with the energy that is stored in there.
Absolutely. So even if this place is condemned, they're gonna, tear it down. As long as you can be near it, like it, man, it sucks that you can't be in it.
Oh, yeah.
You can still pick up the energy from still if being on that location. It's just not going to be as creatively fun,
Right.
but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can't create, make it creative.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, it's like I said, it's one of the places I'd like to get in before they actually get torn down. And I don't know if I'll ever get access to it, but I would love to get into it because it's like 5 or 6 stories tall, and
oh wow,
there's several rooms in it. They even got a old mortuary in the bottom with the chutes and everything else in there as well.
oh
And
wow.
yeah, it would definitely be an interesting place to go check out. But I doubt if I get in there. We got about 15 minutes left here, Chris. I got another question for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever been to a location that the energy was so heavy maybe you left, or how did you deal with it?
Okay, so living in a house for 7 years that had a lot of bad activity, a lot of bad energy, and
Hmm.
probably lower level, you know. Um, I guess I got used to that, right? But when
Hmm.
I went to Oklahoma to the Willock Academy for Native American Girls, now it's a museum, but a lot of bad things happen, as you know, to Native Americans over the years with these Christian conformity schools.
Right.
These poor kids were taken away from their parents, put in these academies, you know, to teach them how to be Christian and more white like
Hmm.
and not be savages, to
Right.
try to basically take their culture away. And they did horrible things to these children. Like, I don't know if people, know this in America, but when it comes to race of people being like really, really, you know, life taken senselessly, it's Native Americans.
Right. Oh,
You
I
know,
definitely agree. They've
yeah.
got a lot of taken away from them over the years, and etc. And it's a shame because they were actually here before we were, or at least my kind, was here. They were here. They had their own religions and they had their own laws, and they seem to get along a lot better than we do now in some cases.
And like this place, dude, like haunted day and night. Man, I'm not gonna lie. It was like we came there. Okay, so this is what we did. We went there in the daytime to scope it, right? I did like a
Hmm.
preliminary, just used an ITC app, but I was like getting like EVPs coming through, the ITC app, and so forth about jumping, and I kept on like looking up at the structure. The structure's like condemned. All of it's condemned, basically. There used to be like I think 15 buildings. The Willock Academy was open like in I think 1810, and then they closed it down during the Civil War. So they used it as a makeshift hospital,
Hmm.
and then they made it back as a school again. And horrible things happened to these children. Like over 200 girls came up missing. They
Oh,
Right, yeah, and I'm I have no confirmation for this, okay? So, but supposedly there was, bodies like mass graves that were
hmm.
found,
Right.
at one part of the acre, because now it just they used to have a whole bunch of acreage. Now it's just very minimal
Right.
and everything. They have the oldest church like in the state of Oklahoma.
So it's like a whisper in the wind, but not exactly sure that it's there, but it possibly could be there.
Yeah, well, look. No, they make their presence known like from day one. Like when we drove up in there, because what I do is like I'll go and use my phone, right, and I'll just
Mm.
use it for like B-roll shots or whatever,
Right.
like driving in or whatever. And you hear this dude say, "Hey," he sound like a Native American dude.
Hmm.
He's like, "Hey," like how, he's like, "Hey," and so
Yeah.
I mean, and it was like it was a class. I want to say what it was like a class B. You know what I'm saying? EVP.
Right.
So, and
Bobby Resnick says here most missionary schools had mass graves.
I believe that. I believe that. I mean, these poor kids. Like, I mean, I was going to. There's a old water tower there, man, and something was telling me to go to it, and I kept on
Hmm.
looking up, and I didn't know why, and then I didn't realize until I looked at the video afterwards. You hear it say "hang." And
Hmm.
then come to find out, like several minutes later, I'm talking to someone who knows about the property, the history, and I accidentally have, you know, my audio running, or a recording on my phone,
Hmm.
and I told him like I don't know what something's like bringing me over there, I said, did anything happen? He's like, yeah, girls hung themselves, you know, off the water tower. And also too, the land or the whole academy is on the Trail of Tears. So not only that you're having all this emotion with all these girls coming up missing, they were being sexually assaulted. These girls would be taken out at night by people who used to work there and would prostitute them out, to the bars and all that. Some of them got pregnant. They went and took their babies away. Some girls, drowned in the lake. A lot of girls jumped to their deaths,
Right.
hung themselves. And it was like very, very haunted. And I think what like scared me the most, here we go. I went all the way around the ass just to get to the hole. So what really scared me the most is that we kept on hearing something in the water, like somebody getting a big rock and throwing it in the water.
Right.
But when we looked, there was no one there. So we're thinking, okay, maybe it's beavers. But the thing about beavers stay in a pack.
Right.
They're not on the other side of the pond, and that pond's pretty big,
Yeah. Bobby made another comment here, Chris. Our children were beaten and sexually abused and sterilized and silenced. That's a shame. I mean,
Yes.
It doesn't matter what race, color, or whatever you are, if you're male or female, going through stuff like that and having things done like that is totally bad.
And because of of that situation that should have never happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is probably one of the reasons what scared me to death was because I looked in the pond because it was foggy that night, and I like looked in the pond and when you have like a light on, and there's fog and all that, you have water, particles, so they kind of,
right.
You know what I'm saying? You can't see right, and so
right.
I happened to go close to, to hear what it was, and when I zoomed in, I shit you not, dude, it was a woman's head or a girl's head bobbing up out of the water and going right back in, and I have it on video.
Oh, wow.
That's what scared me shitless. In my whole entire time of doing stuff like that, that scared me. And then after we kind of like experienced that, when we were walking toward the schoolhouse, you hear in the schoolroom like desks being moved. There's no desk there. You hear like books being dropped. We did not hear this in real time, but when I replayed it, when I was looking over the footage, you hear it in the background. I didn't hear any growls. You hear a growl, like behind me. You hear like residual energy of like metal hitting against metal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I put number one, they really weren't happy. They weren't happy with us being there. We had special permission to be there. But we can only stay on one side of the property.
Right.
So when I put the Haviland Nicola over, by the schoolhouse, you start hearing like these pops, and I'm thinking like, what's going through? That's why like I always say like, never once can I ever, ever debunk the necrophonic, because it's always different in each environment. And so there were girls that were murdered in their rooms one night by a man. And that's what this place is really known for. That's the story. But there were more things that happened there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And all that. And then you hear, like when I did the replay, you hear like they were banged. There were gunshots. And you can hear the girls like, why are you shooting me? And I think it was a guy named Michael, because Michael would come up a lot. My son's, birth name is Michael. So I thought maybe they were talking about my son, Michael, and I asked them through the box. I'm like, are you talking about my son, Michael? And they said, no. And because his nickname is Aiden, is like, Aiden is bonded to you.
Right.
And then it was telling me Michael was a demon. And I think Michael was probably the person who murdered these girls. Because he was talking about like how like something like he had blood on his hands, like he hurt himself. You hear like coughing and sneezing. It was weird, but you heard it say, he's gonna get you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's gonna kill you, basically.
Yeah.
Michael's gonna do that to me.
Yeah.
So, but I just, at that time I didn't know what was going on because I didn't hear the feedback, right? I mean, I didn't hear the playback.
Right.
So we go to one part, of it where I guess at the front of the school, and then all of a sudden my hand started shaking violently,
Oh.
with my phone, and here I am, I'm trying to like film, and it's just shaking, and I'm like putting my other hand on the other side to keep still, and it's just violently shaking, and I could not control it, and then someone else started doing that, and like I didn't know if that was if they were faking it or not or whatever. I mean, it was a kid,
Mhm.
but I knew that I couldn't control myself, and then it just stopped, like it never happened. But I
Yeah.
do have a footage too where we are by the school building and all that, and right when it was saying like Satan or whatever,
Hmm.
you see something come out of my phone.
Oh, wow.
It was weird. It was like this mist came out of my phone, and then you see this mist like coming through. It looked like it was coming out of the school building onto
Hmm.
the porch because that's where my device was, on the porch,
Right.
and then you can see it go through the Havla Nicola, and then you see it dance around me, and
Hmm.
then it goes off. And this is foggy. I mean, we're
Oh,
talking about fog here.
right.
See this going against the current of what's really going on.
Oh, no, most definitely. I've,
Yeah.
I've done I've done experiments with fog machines at Broadhead Manor, and we've come up with some very interesting stuff there. Me and Bill Walter has, and we made a door out of PVC pipe and just let a little mist through at a time,
Uh huh.
just to fill the doorway part. And we did get some interesting results out of that as well, of things crossing through, and that was definitely interesting. Somebody said they want to put a laser grid across that too as well, and that would be interesting too, to have all three of those combinations together and be able to do that. But Chris, we are at the top of the hour,
Hey, well,
and
thank you for having me.
yeah, it was been great talking to you. We're definitely going to have you again, and maybe pick a topic next time as well, and maybe
Yeah.
even dig into it, because I mean, you've got some interesting things. Especially, I like talking about Tesla for sure, and some of the other things like that. And maybe we can get into some Tesla stuff and dig into that.
No,
And
absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for everyone watching tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
any last words that where they could find you and see where you're at?
Yes. So, you definitely can see some of my work or most of my work on TikTok. Lisbony Paranormal on TikTok. So you can definitely check that out. Now I do have a YouTube page. I really don't advertise it much because it's just research stuff that I've done. But you're more than welcome to check it out. Is Lisbony Paranormal CITC Research, and that's on YouTube. So you can definitely check out some of the CITC session work I've done on missing persons, having questions that need to be answered. I probably have some funny stuff on there too. Because energy can be funny and hilarious at times. So
Yeah. And Gwen says Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Check me out, Outcast Podcast
Yep.
Radio,
And you
Wednesday
can,
nights.
yep, you can definitely find Chris here exactly as well. Like I said, check out all Access Network television shows right here on the Eternal X Wolf Pack, and several other places as well. Definitely check out all the shows. They're all great, and definitely worth watching. You learned a lot of interesting stuff as well. Thanks, Chris.
Well, thank you for having me.
I am going to set you backstage, and I'm going to close out the show here with some commercials here, and we'll talk to you here in a few minutes.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for watching.
Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you.
Yes, that was Chris O'Toole. Definitely go check out her stuff. She's got some amazing stuff on her pages as well. I am looking for a few things here. We are definitely going to show something here. Definitely go check out Austin Light's comics. He is putting together a comic. He does them on demons. He tells a hell of a story, and he also dresses up as some of the characters as well. And he will definitely be at one of the Paracons. So definitely go check him out when you get a chance to go see Austin Light. He will also be on the show here in a few weeks as well. So you'll be able to ask him questions about his comic book when he comes on as well. Then we have right here, we have the Cincinnati Con. We're going to run a commercial for them here. So check this out. Yes, so definitely go check out the Cincinnati Paracon as well. We also have All Access Network Television. Check them out. Yeah, great. Go check out All Access Network Television as well. We also have one more. Definitely go to this one. July at the Paranormal Rock down at Broadhead Manor. I will be in the crowd visiting with everybody as well. So here we go with the Rock Down.
Brace yourself for the Paranormal Rockdown, July 18th and 19th, 2025 at the haunted Broadhead Manor. Friday night, rock out with Dead Amsterdam, Left on Red, and headliner Green Jelly. The music may not be the only thing shaking these walls. Rumor has it the spirits love a good beat. Will you meet one? Saturday, meet paranormal legends like Dave Schrader, Sam Baltrusis, and more. Enjoy thrilling workshops, tasty treats, and a live Zoom Q&A with Dustin Perry. Dive into the ultimate paranormal investigation with expert guides, or join a spine-tingling seance with Sam Baltrusis. Tickets are limited. Get yours now for an unforgettable weekend of music, mystery, and chills.
So definitely go check out the Paranormal Rockdown in Broadhead Manor. And next Sunday, we will have Bobby Resnick as a guest. Come check him out, ask questions, and we will answer them live right here. And have a great weekend, everybody. And thanks for everybody stopping in, asking questions. And we will see you next time on the Eternal X Wolfpack Paranormal. Have a great night, everybody.